Well, he should be talking. He should actually be saying things publicly, as in to reporters in front of cameras, but he shouldn't be saying much. He should be out there saying simply, look, the families, and this is a very difficult time for the family. Please respect their privacy. Obviously, no one will, but you have to say that. And then you have to say that, please remember that Brian is presumed innocent. And we're not going to speculate as to where he is or what he's done or what time I've last seen him or spoken to him. None of that should be spoken about, right? Because that's between him and Brian. It's just simple, respect the family's privacy. This is a difficult time. Remember, Brian is presumed innocent, and please keep that in mind as this case progresses. That's it, 2 to 3 sentences, but you got to say that publicly, and he hasn't done that.
You're watching live now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. I am joined now by Vinoo Varghese. He is a criminal defense attorney located out in New York. Vinoo, thanks for being on the show as always.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
Okay, so we haven't talked in a little while about the search for Brian Laundrie, the Gabby Petito case. We're going to dive into a bunch of different topics, but first off, I want to start out with what is going on with the attorney, Stephen Bertolino. He is representing Roberto Laundrie and Chris Laundrie, the mother and father, and then, of course, Brian, even though he is missing at this point in time. We've been hearing little snippets from him throughout this case, and just coming out this past week, there was a little bit of a discrepancy in the timeline for when they last saw Brian. Typically for cases like this, what is a defense attorney, what is an attorney, a family attorney, supposed to be doing in public sight as far as talking to the press, talking to the public about their clients?
Well, he should be talking. He should actually be saying things publicly, as in to reporters in front of cameras, but he shouldn't be saying much. And this is where it gets a little weird. I mean, these snippets or these text conversations that he's having, you shouldn't do that. You should be out there saying simply, look, the families, and this is a very difficult time for the family. Please respect their privacy. Obviously, no one will, but you have to say that. And then you have to say that, please remember that Brian is presumed innocent. And we're not going to speculate as to where he is or what he's done or what time I've last seen him or spoken to him. None of that should be spoken about, right? Because that's between him and Brian. So no detail from him should be coming out as to communications or as to whereabouts or anything along those lines should be coming out. It's just simple, respect the family's privacy. This is a difficult time. Remember, Brian is presumed innocent, and please keep that in mind as this case progresses. That's it, 2 to 3 sentences, but you got to say that publicly, and he hasn't done that.
Yeah, we haven't heard any press conferences or anything from him, just like you referenced, text messages between him and several reporters who were following this story. You also pointed out an interesting nugget right there about the fact that Brian Laundrie, still up to this point, is a person of interest. He is not a suspect in the case. Why?
It's just semantics at this point, right? He's obviously suspect number one. There could be a number of reasons why they haven't issued a murder warrant for him. Some of them may be procedural in Florida law, but that's not a big deal. I mean, obviously they're looking for him. There's no doubt he is the prime suspect in terms of her murder, or the only suspect, in fact. I mean, he was with her. He comes back in her car, and she's not there. Later, she's found dead in the woods. I mean, there's more than enough for the state of Florida or the state of Utah, wherever she was found, to charge him with murder. But they may decide not to at this point. They don't have to. So they're probably waiting till they find him, and assuming they find him, or if he's not, in the belly of some crocodile or alligator. I mean, that's where he may be. But they don't need to charge him at this point. They don't, and everybody's looking for him. Everyone knows that he's going to be charged if he's, caught alive.
Well, we haven't gotten the final autopsy results out yet. Do you think that could flip the script and make him a suspect in the case?
Sure, if the autopsy shows that that she was beaten, injuries, head injuries, body injuries, anything along those lines, and if there's when they executed the search warrant on his home, they took some of his clothing to hopefully get a DNA match. So if his DNA is on her, then yeah, that's going to be a much easier case for the prosecution, that in terms of eventually charging him and ultimately proving a case.
Chris Laundrie, the father of Brian, has now become a part of this search effort at the Carlton Reserve at this time. What were your thoughts when you heard that he was starting to become involved? Because up to this point, they've pretty much remained in their home, going in and out only sometimes.
It's weird. I think at this point he should just be holed up and looking, and keeping quiet. It's a very strange thing to be part of a search party for your son. I don't know if there's some master plan in effect, or he knows something that can ultimately lead to maybe his theme is that my client's innocent. He only ran because everybody's pointing the finger at him, so let me help find him. Perhaps that's the outlook or the perspective he has. But otherwise, it's just strange. I mean, clearly the police are the FBI and local law enforcement are all looking for him. So there's no reason for the father to be involved in that. They're going, unless he has some information that he just wants to give to them that will help locate his son.
What do communications typically look like between the FBI investigators and the family and the attorney? What do those look like?
Well, they're usually not very pleasant. So I'm not talking about Petito's family, I'm talking about for Laundrie's family, right? So because there's been talk about charging them as accomplices or, after the fact, or, or potentially in government obstruction, where there has been some commentary on that. So they themselves need to be very careful, but usually it's not going to be pleasant because it seems that there's already a shadow cast upon them for with regards to their potential assistance in helping him get away. So they could end up being charged themselves, and that's another reason why they shouldn't be talking to the FBI.
Do you think that could be a part of now Chris Laundrie's assistance with trying to find Brian? Because they've said that they've had no part in the disappearance of Brian, that they want him to come home just as much as anyone else.
I mean, if that's the case, that means then the Laundrie's hired a separate attorney, and maybe or they hired this guy and they worked out a non-prosecution agreement. I mean, I guess it's theoretically possible, but it's it's unlikely. So it's very strange what's going on here, and without knowing more, it's almost to some extent irresponsible to speculate. But is it a possibility that they've entered into some deal with the FBI for non-prosecution? Yeah, but that would have been reviewed by a lawyer. They would have had it wouldn't even be the FBI, it'd be the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the federal prosecutor would have had to authorize that, and they would have, in these deals, they actually tell them you need a lawyer to be part of this process.
We're also hearing from Gabby Petito's family at this time. The family has been pretty outspoken about Brian coming forward and turning himself in, if he is out there somewhere. Do you think that there's any type of communication between those two lawyers? Is that rare, or is that common for those two to be speaking?
Well, I'm not sure how much. I mean, I would think so. I think it would be strange if they are. I know that the Petito family lawyer was angry with the Laundrie family lawyer because there were pictures of them on his Yelp page. I'm not sure who goes to Yelp to find lawyers anyway, but that's a whole other issue, right? But I think maybe restaurants, now. But anyway, so I would doubt it. I mean, if they're communicating. I'm not sure why they would be communicating. If I'm the Laundrie family attorney, I do not want any part of that communication. I mean, it would be a one way. You can send me any messages you want, Petito family lawyer, and I'll certainly consider them, but I'm not responding. So there seems to be nothing that would be in the advantage of the Petito, of the Laundries, if they're communicating with the Petito family attorney.
As a defense attorney, what would you be looking for at this point in the investigation and keeping your eye on?
Well, I want to, look, right now it's a fugitive hunt, right? So the only thing that I would be concerned with, and I would want to know, is whether they conducted the search properly, whether they tainted any evidence. I mean, if there was like a DNA match, was there something tainted, to match the DNA of Laundrie to, with the body of Petito or any of her clothing or whatever they're saying. So there are things to look out for, but they're not going to be an issue at this point until you get an arrest and a prosecution. And when something is there, so if they charge him, they find him, he's alive, they charge him with murder, and then they seek to introduce evidence that they recovered from the search warrant, then you really want to make sure that you have proper, that everything was done properly. So really, in these kind of cases, often law enforcement becomes overzealous, and because they're out to get somebody, and they skip critical steps along the way. So that's what I would be looking for. But at this point, it's not ripe, as they say, for looking, because he's not going to be able to get any of that. He'll only know this stuff, the criminal defense lawyer the future criminal defense lawyer for Brian Laundrie, if and when Laundrie's charged with murder. So credit card fraud is a different issue. I don't think DNA is so much involved in that, but that's the things that he can potentially look forward in the future.
Got it. So two things that we'll be watching for: that final autopsy result, that report, which is taking a little longer than I think we all thought it was going to take, and then also the possibility of Brian Laundrie changing from that person of interest into an actual suspect in this case. Anything else that you want to add on, Vinoo?
I mean, look, if the autopsy comes back and let's say, she had died of, natural causes or something along those lines, and he just freaked out and left, I mean, that's something that could, be, possible. We don't know at this point. Obviously, I think that based on the optics, they have enough to charge him, but maybe they're just waiting to be sure and getting that final report.
All right, Vinoo Varghese, criminal defense attorney, thank you so much for being on the show.